So, domain 6, we are working our way through that. We're talking about professional development and responsibility. And I forgot to record in the beginning, so the task stuff is right here. So, we're working our way through the big bullet points we want to cover. We want to talk about our, professional and ethical guidelines and scope of practice and stuff, right? So, just taking a look here at chapter one. There's actually not a oh gosh, sorry. Not a ton of content in chapter one that we necessarily need for this. Chapter one in every NASA material is really just a lot of times like introductory information. It's like, hey, here's the basics of like why you bought this textbook and what we're offering and what you want to accomplish as you sort of like get into this industry. Just working our way through that. One thing that NASM's sort of setting up in the beginning here is this idea of like, as a company, they focus on evidence-based practice, which is like, when I say evidence-based, this is kind of what I was talking about in class yesterday when we were talking about like certain supplements and stuff, right? Like, again, like the original version of like creatine was, hey, take this 30 minutes before your workout. And they noticed that it worked, right? It was like people started doing that and it worked pretty well. Then they looked at it later and they were like, well, it kind of doesn't, based on like how creatine should be operating in the body, that kind of doesn't make any sense. So then they were like, they did it against people who were just taking it consistently at the same time, every 24 hours, and they found that was more effective. And they're like, oh. And so then like they started putting on the labels. So it didn't matter if you took it 30 minutes before your workout, but they started keeping it on labels and then they just added the other days. They're like, on your training days, take it 30 minutes before your workout. On your off days, take it with a glass of water at some point during the day. Um, and it's like when you think about it, it's like, well, why'd they do that? Like, if it doesn't actually matter if it's 30 minutes before your workout, they do it because psychologically, people are way more likely to do something if you tell them that it only works like in this kind of magical, mystical way. Um, and it doesn't hurt them. So why not just say it? Like it's an instruction from a company. There's no legality there. It's not a prescription. You're not gonna get worse results doing it the way they're telling you. So it is kind of funny. Like that's one of the things. So when it comes down to it, it's like that's what we call like evidence-based practice. They found that like, there is evidence to suggest that like doing things this way is a what we call a best practice. Best practices basically just means that, you know, through observation and like doing things in many different ways, this is the one that was found to be the best, right? Now, here's what I'll say, like, is there probably a magical better way to do something sometimes? Absolutely. When we get well, the way that we get evidence-based practice is we get it from individual professionals' experience. So, Shantice might have like a story about how she's like, I did things this way, and that was like the thing that worked for me. And I had read on the internet you're supposed to do it that way, and I did it for years that way. But when I changed it and did it this way, that's what worked for me. Right? Now we call that like individual anecdotal evidence. In the terms of like hierarchy of like what type of evidence is best, the individual anecdotal evidence, individual like story evidence, right? Keto worked for me. Like somebody telling you a story of like what worked for them. It's probably the worst version of evidence. And what I mean by that is like it's not necessarily like studied or anything like that, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen, right? So it's like who was I saying this to just the other day? Oh, I was talking to somebody about like what their personal experience was, and they were like, "That's the thing that worked for me." And I remember being like, "Look, if it worked for you, keep doing it." But I will say this, it probably worked for you because of a couple other external factors. You know what I mean? Like like I've had people go on keto and then have like a major amount of success and they're like, yeah, it's the ketones. The ketones like it works better for me. It's like or it's really easier for you to adhere to a diet that is full of like bacon and avocado, like things that are absolutely delicious, that makes a little bit more sense when you look at like why so many people have like keto success. That and the fact that like It's a low, slow burning style of energy, which most people don't exercise a lot. So low, slow energy is great. I've done keto. I absolutely hated it. I needed that like booster button for when I'm playing sports, and that booster button just doesn't exist on keto, because you don't have like glycolysis as like a means of like energy production. So like just not great. You kind of have to skip glycolysis in ketosis. Um, so like I hated it. But again, other people aren't like that. So it totally works for them, which is great. I am fully in support of that. So that's individual expertise. There's also external evidence, which is studies that have been shown to work things one way or another. That's probably the most important, at least from a scientific standpoint. Um, things have been studied to be more effective one way or another. Again, we know certain things work based on like the science of biology. But then there's also like client values and expectations. So let's say you get like some personal experience, you have an opinion on like the best way to do cardio, and then you read an article that kind of matches with what you experienced, but maybe a little bit different. And so you're amalgamating those two concepts and you write the world's greatest cardio routine ever made. And it's like, mwah, ha, ha. It's going to make you a world-class runner in 60 days. Well, if your client hates cardio, or let's say like your world-class routine requires X, Y, and Z, but your client just hates doing X, they're probably not going to do it. So, you know, I said yesterday, the whole like dry scooping thing is like so it's like a real popular thing in like a lot of gym culture. You take your pre-workout as just a dry scoop rather than mixing it with water. Um, if you like doing that, then you're probably more likely to consistently use this thing that boosts performance. So there you go. It probably is better for you. To say that it's better for everyone, I think is disingenuous. We don't like that, right? But if it works for you, great. There's room for that in evidence-based practice. So that's kind of what we're saying. We take all of this stuff. There's times where like I'll write what I think is the best routine. And my client will be like, I hate this and I don't want to do it. And I'm like, okay, you hate it. Let's swap it out for something that you like a little bit better. Now, if they hate it because it's hard, yeah, that falls a little bit on deaf ears. Training is supposed to be hard. But if they hate it because, like, it's difficult for them to get a spot in the gym, there's always people on that machine or that piece of equipment or whatever, or if they feel uncomfortable doing it and so they're just less likely to do it during their homework, then I'm totally going to take that into account. So, there's your experiences, right? There's best external evidence and there's client expectations. All that comes together to be like where we kind of want to base our information in. So that's what we mean when we say like evidence-based practice. It's the conscientious use of current best evidence in making decisions about client care. Then we got NASM's OPT model. We've beat this into the ground, so I know you guys know this. 3 levels: stabilization, strength, and power. 5 phases: stabilization, endurance, strength, endurance, muscular development, maximal strength, and power again. And so you get your exercise choices from the levels: unstable variations of exercises, stable heavy variations of exercises, explosive variations of exercises. And then you get your phases: high repetition, low rest, slow tempos, high repetitions, moderate tempos, higher weight, moderate reps, moderate weight, moderate tempo. It's kind of everything in the middle. Maximal weight, maximal rest, and of trying to be explosive tempo with minimal reps. And then moderate reps, but explosive tempo and moderate weight. So we do have like different acute variables for those various phases, helping us design different routines for people. So then we use the OPT template. The OPT template is our workout template that's going to allow us to build high levels of everything an athlete or person needs to have an athletic body. So we start with like a warm up. where we address flexibility and mobility things. We have activation, where we address the core and balance. We have skill development, where we address the things that are really effective for like particularly sports. Not everybody's going to do skill development. It's a section that not every client gets. In fact, I'd say less than half of your clients really need plyometric and SIQ training. Although I do really like doing just some plyometrics with my clients, just because again, like developing good landing mechanics is just an important part of life when, other human beings are crazy. They might like try to run you over with their Uber. So you need to be able to want to jump out of the way, especially in this town. And then the main meat and potatoes, right? Strength development and coordination development and stability development in all of the joints throughout the body. Total body, your chest, your back, your shoulders, your biceps, your triceps, your legs, right? Um, and then the cool down, readdressing flexibility and mobility. So really warm up slash cool down there. Okay, so yeah, so that's really kind of what we're talking about. Like in terms of our scope of practice, right? That's what we are focused on, right? Like we are very much focused on staying in the realm of working on all of the things that we just talked about, right? The development of those things. Now, can we also talk about things that are going to support the development of increased flexibility, better balance, strength, body composition changes? Are we allowed to address other areas like that? For instance, nutrition. Absolutely, guys. You are totally, totally allowed to talk about that. I am going to skip through some of these PowerPoints because this gets into stuff that isn't what we're talking about today. It's the stuff we started with in the beginning. So talking about like our scope of practice and conduct, right? When it comes to being a trainer, you are the expert in the world of training, right? So are you an expert in the world of nutrition? Also, yes, but a specific type of nutrition, right? So let's say, Frank, you've got your ankle issue right now, right? So you needed to see a doctor who was a specialist in the realm of like diagnostics, right? Like the and prescription. So you needed like the right medicine prescribed for like, this problem in your ankle, right? You don't want to go to a brain surgeon for your ankle problem. Like, don't get me wrong, brain surgeons probably super smart, they probably know a lot of they at some point during medical school totally had to study, ankle prescriptive medicine. You know what I mean? But they didn't dedicate time and energy into their career to being an expert in prescribing how to fix those things. So, like as a trainer, we're experts in the realm of exercise, and we are experts in the realm of nutrition, but we are not experts in the realm of specific diet. And that is different. Like knowing about nutrition and knowing about diet are two different things, right? Good example, another good example is like if you're a mechanic, right, you know a lot about like working on cars, yes. But I will say this, if I go to a Toyota dealership with a Mazda, they might not really be experts on how to work on my car. You know, that's a big deal. We want to make sure that like we are staying in our lanes. We are not experts on prescribing diets to people. That is a big deal. We are experts on nutrition as a concept. So, what we can do is we can totally teach people nutritional concepts. I can say, hey, this is what a keto diet is. Here's some of the benefits. Here's some of the drawbacks. Here's my opinion on it as to whether I think it's like, if you wanted to do it, your diet would look like this. If you didn't want to do it, you'd probably be more of a traditional diet. It would look like this. I can lay all that out and educate. What I can't do is say, hey, Aaron, I want you to eat this every single day because I am putting you on a keto diet. That is well outside of my scope of practice, right? Now, can I absolutely find on the internet, something like this as like a research version of like what my client can do, right? Keto diet, 7-day example meal plan. Am I allowed to do that? Absolutely, right? Grab one of these. There we go. Right. Breakfast, 2 poached or fried eggs. Lunch is a broccoli coleslaw, chicken, which is literally just two eggs. Anyway, not addressing whether or not I like this or not. Actually, yes, I am. I hate this. So, let's say I give this to my client as a resource. Am I allowed to do that so that they can see what it's like, or maybe even like choose to put themselves through it? Totally. I'm totally, totally, totally allowed to do that. What I can't do is say, hey, Lisa, for breakfast, I want you to have this many ounces of bacon, this egg cup following this recipe, and avocado, this much avocado on the side, use a food scale, weigh it out, right? Like I can't do that. Who can? Who can do that? Dietitians and doctors. They're the ones who are allowed to prescribe food, right? And that's the interesting thing about the US. We in the US consider food to fall under a similar category to medicine. So food and medicine actually are weirdly linked together. If you tell someone what to eat, you are prescribing them basically food. And we're not prescriptive, okay? It would be wildly inappropriate for us to write a meal plan that is specific to you. Now, what I can also do, I'm totally allowed to be like, hey, Trisha, these are some macros. I know you're a long distance runner. You're going to need a lot of carbohydrates for that. Generally, what is recommended for a long distance runner is a high carbohydrate diet. You're probably looking anywhere between like 55 to 60% of your diet is going to be from carbohydrate sources. Here's a list of really good carbohydrate sources that are considered very healthy. I can give her that list. I can tell her what some of my favorites are. I'm like, I really like this, 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 and this. You know what? I got a great recipe for you. If you wanted to try this, here you go. I can give it. What I am not doing, though, is saying, Trisha, eat this every day, or eat this tomorrow. I am not telling you what to eat. I'm telling you things you can eat, right? There's a really funny. I'm not like a big D&D guy. I played for my buddy Owen, my best friend Owen's birthday. He wanted to like play D&D and be the game master who tells everyone how to play and stuff. And since then we've played a couple rounds of that, for his birthday again and stuff. And it's really funny and really interesting. But I will say because of that and like having to learn how to play the game, I watched a couple like YouTube videos and stuff. So I got on my feed like D&D videos, which is kind of funny and they're really interesting to watch because it's like cool storytelling. I don't know if anybody in here plays role-playing games, but there's a really great guy. He's the voice of the gunslinger guy from Overwatch. And he's like a professional D&D player. That's what he does. He's a voiceover artist and then he plays D&D for a living. And it's so funny because like what will happen is like his players will be like, "Hey, I want to do this. Should I do that?" And they'll ask it like, "Should I do that?" And he'll go, "You can." And it's like really ominous in all these videos because then the players go, "Ooh, maybe I shouldn't do that." And it's like you can do that. That's kind of the approach we take to nutrition, actually. Like as trainers, a lot of like what we do is like you can do these things. Here's my opinion on it. Here's what I think the science shows. You want to do it, maybe the benefits are there. Um, Same thing is true of supplements. We do not prescribe supplements. It's wildly inappropriate for, Lisa to be like, hey, I want you to take 2 fish oil supplements every day with breakfast. Yeah, here's the thing. Fish oil is pretty good for you. It can be beneficial, if your diet is like low in omega fatty acids, you know. But that's not the approach you want to take. You don't want to say like, hey, take this every day. Go get a fish oil supplement. Go buy that and start taking it every daily. That's not what we do. What we can do is say like, hey, you struggle with getting your omega fats in your diet, like based on like what I'm looking at in your food journaling, based on like what I'm seeing here, and the fact that you're at high risk of heart disease and this and this and this, a fish oil supplement could be really beneficial for you. Then we could take it if we want to be really safe. That's already enough information. We want to be even safer. We could say you should ask your doctor about taking a fish oil supplement. That could be really good. we can totally tell our clients to go talk to their doctor who is prescriptive, who can then say, yeah, go get the, this is the one that I like or whatever. Does that make sense, everybody? Are we pretty clear on that part of our scope of practice?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Next part of it, the other thing we don't do is we do not diagnose or treat disease or injury. So again, I want to be clear here. I have had a lot. I've worked, I specialize in weight loss, and body composition stuff. That's like where I don't know. It's weird. I specialize in corrective exercise, but like, I don't know. I ended up stumbling into weight loss, and I've been stuck there for years just because that's, where the business is. So I have learned to specialize in that as well. But um, I heard myself say that out loud. I'm like, that's weird. I didn't intend to specialize in that. But I worked in weight loss a long time. I had a lot of clients who have heart disease and diabetes and a lot of problems like that. Diabetes in particular is a really interesting one because it's insulin resistance, right? Which is something you develop by having too much blood sugar all the time. But if you start exercising, which burns through your blood sugar, your body gets much more sensitive to the insulin that it's producing. So your insulin sensitivity goes up, and now you're more sensitive to it, which means it takes less insulin to have an effect on your body. So now my clients start taking less metformin, Inevitably what happens, by the way, on journeys like that is you'll have your clients like they'll start to like, they'll hit this weird plateau type wall during their journey. And they're like, yeah, I've been feeling a little off lately. Right. And then they find out that like they need less, it was insulin. Now insulin's not quite prescribed as often. There's other medicines out there and stuff like metformin. Um, and so they're like, yeah, I've been feeling a little weird with it lately. And then they'll feel better and they'll go to their doctor and they'll be like, hey, your blood sugar looks way better than it used to. We're gonna lower your dosage. And so then they take less, they keep exercising, then also they feel better. And then they get even more sensitive through more exercise, and eventually they stop taking their medication as prescribed by a doctor. Um, Blood pressure, I've seen that disappear, right? So would I ever tell my clients, hey, like, yeah, train with me, we'll get rid of your diabetes, we'll get rid of your high blood pressure? No, that would be wildly inappropriate. The exercise that I'm giving my clients, the routines I'm giving them, does not treat any disease directly. But will you see disease sometimes disappear? Absolutely. Very common, actually. So again, like I always tell people, disease reduction and even just like weight loss, both of those things, the phrase I like to use, it is those things are byproducts of an overall healthy and functional lifestyle. But did I write a routine to treat their diabetes? No. I wrote a routine and the side effect of that routine is that their diabetes got better. That will happen a lot, by the way, if you're working in, extreme pops. Um, Especially pre-diabetics. There we go.
Question about that.
Yeah, please.
So, is it possible for diabetes to, let me see, I want to phrase this properly so that I convey what I'm trying to say, or my question. Is it possible that if you have diabetes, you're prescribed this medication and you have weight loss, like say, a lot of people are on Ozempic, right?
Mhm.
And the byproduct or the side effect of that was, weight loss,
Mhm.
a dramatic weight loss. Is it possible without exercise, just the weight loss alone, to have maybe a decreased or increased sensitivity? So where you're now like, okay, the medication is too strong. I don't need as much anymore because maybe you don't have, as many issues with it because of that weight loss.
Totally. Yeah. Can weight loss be I think we were asking, can weight loss be the driving factor behind like reduced medication
Yeah.
rather
Some
than
people don't
exercise?
have the weight loss with the exercise. I've seen people
So,
just lose a dramatic amount of weight. And so now they have a sensitivity to their medication because, they're no longer 100 pounds heavier. They're at a
yeah,
healthy.
absolutely. Yeah, no, you will. So, I mean, that's the reason why so many people are taking. That's why Ozempic's so friggin' popular because it's an appetite curber, you know,
Hmm.
and so it just like it is dramatically effective for weight loss because people are like, yeah, I just did it, you know, and then just kind of shed off on its own, you know. The problem with that, um, just this is a little bit off topic to your question, but the problem is that like you don't really pick up any new skills when something kind of magically disappears, you know.
Hmm.
Which is why like Ozempic's big issue is that there is a pretty high risk of like regain afterwards. Um, which you know can be bad as well. So we got to be careful with that. There's also a high risk of things like gallstones and stuff like that, but that's mostly just because of the lack of eating. Um, that would be true of anything on like a really extreme diet. But there we go, right? Like that's so yes, I would say like even just the weight loss, and the reason why is because particularly abdominal fat starts to kind of have its own weird metabolism. Um, kind of, you know, there's so much of it that it starts to act like its own organ. Because that's actually even our scientific definition of what an organ is. It's just a very large group of tissue. It's because there's so much of like one type of tissue, it starts to kind of act like an organ, like, you know, which is really interesting. Has its own metabolism, starts like interacting with, you know, your metabolism. Um, and so it is like this kind of weird symbiotic thing. Aaron, I don't know if you saw Venom yet. Let me know. Got a weird like symbiote that is like all of your excessive abdominal fat. So when you start like reducing that, the need for insulin is sort of like reduced as well.
Hmm.
However, with exercise, one of the reasons why it's so much more effective, especially long-term like life cycle, you know, if we zoom out, it's like we stay zoomed in, it's like, yeah, look at how effective it was. Then you zoom out and you're like, oh, but they regained back over here, right? Whereas like with exercise, we see that timeline is a little more effective over the course of like a life. And it's because like muscle mass is directly the opposite of like fat tissue. Like fat tissue is very metabolically inactive, muscle mass is very metabolically active, right? Adipose tissue is like storage for energy. Muscle literally burns energy. So if like what we're doing is trying to signal to our body, hey, I brought sugar in, I need you to use it for energy, you need more muscle mass, which is why exercise in conjunction with these things is so much more effective. I'm actually thinking of a video right now. I think this was also a Hank video. Um, let's see here. Girl has diabetes. She's very thin. Um, is it this one? I don't think it was her. It was a shorts. It might have been on my Instagram. Now that I think about it. Oh, good lord. That's just random shorts. Um, no, I'm not gonna find it. But yeah, she's like, it's this girl. She gets on, she gets on and she's like, she's like, I've never struggled with my weight. My BMI has never been outside of normal ranges. She's like, I just got back from the doctors and it turns out I have type 2 diabetes. And you look at her and she's very thin. She just doesn't have any muscle mass. She's a naturally very thin, probably very lean type 1 muscle type person, but she still had type 2 diabetes, where her body was not, burning glucose. It was just letting that glucose kind of sit in in the bloodstream until eventually it started like metabolically causing her problems, you know? So yeah, diet and exercise together. So, getting back into the whole we don't treat disease thing, we don't prescribe medications, supplements, food, anything to treat disease or anything like that, but we do absolutely work in conjunction. It's just not what we're experts on. So, we have like the diet approach, doctors and dietitians can address maybe a specific disease through a diet. So, a dietitian can say, hey, this is a diabetic specialist diet. This is going to treat your diabetes, right? Which means they're on the hook for that liability if it doesn't work as well. So the nice thing about scope of practice, we don't have to deal with that, which is nice. There's also doctors as well, right? They're on the hook for like the success of the routine that they're putting you through, the medication that they're putting you on. We're not, held responsible for that. But here's the other part of it, right? It would be wildly inappropriate for us to prescribe a diet. It would be really inappropriate for us to just prescribe a medication. It is also just as inappropriate for a dietitian to prescribe an exercise program if they are not a trainer. So scope of practice goes both ways, right? Like a dietitian cannot say, I want you to do 6 sets of this and 20 reps of that and do this. Yeah, they can't write workout programs. Are they totally allowed to say, like, hey, you should diet or you should exercise more? They're totally allowed to do that. Are they allowed to print off very simple exercise routines from the internet as an example of like what they can do? Absolutely, they can do that. They can totally do that. But it's, again, like they're staying within their scope of practice. They're not writing workouts. That's a trainer's job. And hopefully that makes it a little clear about like how scope of practice works. You're an expert on what you're an expert on. You are not an expert on what you're not an expert in. So like here's the thing, doctors, they're so smart. They had to go to so much school, like they had to like study so much. Like that's all, a big deal. I have seen workout routines that doctors have written before. My clients will like bring them in. They're like, my doctor printed this off the internet. Horrible, like awful, awful routines, Um, and so like that's the thing that we got to consider here, right? We got to consider that like, you know, if you're not an expert in this area, it is important legally, ethically as well to stay within your scope of practice. Does that answer your question, Lisa? Probably way beyond it.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
You're like, yeah, you answered it. Move on. All right. So those are some of our legal and ethical responsibilities. What our scope of practice limitations are. Actually, one other thing. So we've talked about injury, we talked about disease, we talked about meal planning. I forgot psychological counseling. You are also a coach. You are totally allowed to coach your clients to make them better at exercise. What you are not allowed to do is apply like therapy. We are not therapists, right? We study some psychological principles. We talked about the model of change recently. We've talked about SMART goals and goal setting. Here's a really good way to kind of think of like, this is like something that I heard that was really effective. Therapists' job are to analyze, again, like, and this is also like, again, they're doctors, right? Like they're analyzing for prescriptive purposes, but they are focused on like the past in order to impact the present and future. Okay. Coaches, we are focused on the present in order to have a positive impact on the future. Like we are helping our clients like focus on the now. We super do not dive into the past in terms of like dredging up old traumas to like treat them. That is super outside of our scope of practice. But we're absolutely allowed to be like, hey, Yasmin, here's 3 things I want you to incorporate into your week. I think they're going to make you feel a little bit better. I want you to go walking 3 times a week, right? For just 20 minutes, get outside, get some sunlight, not on a treadmill, go get some fresh air, right? That's something I'm telling her to do like in the present, right? Diet wise, I can say something like, do me a favor, start tracking your foods. Just do a little bit of a food journal, tell me, write it down what you're eating Monday through Friday this week, and let's see what happens. Right. So there's something about like nutrition, right? I'm absolutely allowed to do something like that. It's going to be habit forming and it's something in the present, right? And then let's say in the term of like injury and disease and things like that, I might say something like, hey, like here is a, really interesting article that I read about, we'll say, multiple sclerosis, right? Here's something I want you to just kind of read up on this and you tell me like, what do you think? And then we'll kind of talk about it. And it's got some beneficial exercises that have been shown to be effective for people with MS. So not that Yasmin has MS, but like just picking, I don't know any conditions that you have, so I just made one up. But like, those are all things that are around that other side of things. The only thing I told her to do that was like prescriptive in terms of like my areas of expertise, though, was exercise. I was like, you go walk, right? The other things are very much like research and education based, right? If she food journals, she's going to learn what she's eating. If she reads this article, she's going to learn a little bit about this, right? That is a big part of like where we can do that. So, I can assign homework in the realm of like psychology. I can do it in the realm of nutrition. I can do it in the realm of like disease. What I'm not allowed to do is like assign prescriptive do this because it will treat any of those areas. Okay. So that is that's really like the scope of practice. That's kind of the end of chapter 1 there. So then continuing talking about like what it means to be a professional like trainer and how that works. Oh no, that's not where I wanted to grab it. Next bit we want to go. We want to talk about like maintaining professional credentials, what our regulations for CPTs are. We kind of already did that. So again, this is diving back to I remember saying at the start of this class, this is where we would end up circling back to this. But again, you go to NASM.org. The rules for maintaining your certification, guys, are in order to be a CPT, you need to get certification. In order to get certification, you have to follow all the NCCA rules. So the NCCA, the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, that is the company that basically they're the watchdog company that is in charge of like making sure that anybody out there who starts a certification follows a certain set of rules. So, here's the rules. I can actually watch this. Wait, you can't just like see it? You have to buy it? That's crazy. Anyway, well, I'm definitely not doing that. But you have to follow all these like rules. One of the big ones is that you have to pass an exam. Our exam is 100 questions. And then you also have to maintain certification by earning continuing education units, is what we call them. That's CEUs. Other companies might call them something else. Continuing education credits, CECs is a common term, right? But you have to basically like follow the rules as set by the NCCA. NASM has to make sure that you do that if NASM is going to certify you. Like I said, it's a 100 question exam, but something that NASM does that is unique is they like to throw in 20 survey questions in order to make sure that like they are keeping up on trends related to helping people learn. When it comes to like continuing education, you need to earn your 2.0 CEUs every year. I actually went to this and it was like a force of habit. I don't need to be here. Let me go back. NASM.org. Sign back in and go to like, there we go. Profile. No. They moved all this. I'm so bad at, there we go. Microdent. No. It's recertification. There we go. I'm so bad at navigating this right now. I gotta practice this. I had to put some. So I've got 3 months remaining to earn the 2.0 CEUs that I need in order to stay certified. Is that right? That's not right. October, November, December, January. That's 4 months. Well, that's weird. I guess because we're past the 12. Yeah. Anyway, I have to go earn 2.0 CEUs, right? So I'm gonna need to find continuing education classes somewhere that I have to take. Now, a lot of places where you work, they will pay for your CEUs. That's one of the benefits of working in commercial gyms or working in most gyms. Number one, certain companies actually have partnership with NASM. So pretty much any of the big gyms have a partnership with NASM. So if you work at an LA Fitness, call NASM, let them know. That's the thing. Don't just buy it online. Call a rep actually, and a lot of times they'll have discounts that they don't advertise. And you say like, "Hey, I'm a LA Fitness trainer or a Crunch trainer, or 24 Hour Fitness, I work at Equinox," and NASA might go, "Oh, cool, we actually give a discount for people who work for those companies." But then you also might find special offers on the website, things like that. Here we go, free courses for the month of. So, there's a next specialty on plant-based diets. I'm actually going to click this. What's it worth CEU wise? 0. Boo. Okay. Still helpful. That is really cool. What about these other ones? All right, probably gotta actually like log into your stuff. But you'll see sometimes they'll throw out free CEUs that you can take on their website as well. It's kind of cool. But basically, what you have to do is you have to cobble together and get up to 2.0, right? Well, technically, you have to get up to 1.9. Point one of it always must be CPR. You basically just have to plug in your CPR to prove it. So you go to My CEUs, this little box right here, add CPR and other CEUs. So you click that. So you got that. It's worth 0.1, right? And then you say where you got it from. Put your documentation, you hit select file, you upload your CPR, your new CPR card, and hit add, save CEUs. You do that, it'll plug it in, and I think it adds it actually right away, but then eventually like they have somebody whose job it is to like look at that, they'll confirm it so you don't upload like nonsense or do it wrong. And yeah, basically you just stay in this whole thing here. You select your stuff. What's nice about like staying with NASM though, if you go over to like their courses in specializations, like let's say you want the women's fitness specialist, right? So I can find that. Oh, you can also set your minimum, the minimum CEUs that you want, which is kind of cool. Continuing education. Trying to find that one. There's 9 pages of this. Do they not have a search feature? That is insane if they don't. Ugh. All right, well, I'm gonna change my mind then. All right, so let's say you want to become like a group exercise trainer, right? By the way, I think this is a pretty worthless certification. Don't get this one, in my opinion, which is just my opinion. But you can work as a group exercise instructor as a trainer. Group exercise instructors can't work as trainers; they have to be trainers. But it's crazy to me that you're not really going to learn much in here. The only thing they'll teach you are some interesting common class formats, which you can really come up with on your own or find online. I just think this is a pretty weak certification personally, but look, it's worth 1.9 CEUs. So let's say I took that one, boom, this little circle here is going to fill up to 1.9. I plug in my CPR, boom, it fills up to 2.0, and then I'm done. I don't have to do anything. At least I will say I don't have to do anything. I'm done because I paid for the Recertify for Life program. I do also recommend that. I will recommend this. You shouldn't buy this, guys, until like 2 or 3 years from now. But I do, if you're gonna stay in this industry, I'm a big fan. It's $400 one time, and then you never have to pay a recertification fee ever again, which is 99. I think it's $99. Yeah, $99. So, it pays for itself in 4 years, basically. And then there's some other benefits as well. You get 30% off specializations and workshops. I'm a big fan. I do not like having to have to like file that paperwork. So once I do my CEUs, I'm always done. You have to do your CEUs and then pay your $99 recertification fee every 2 years. You do that, you're done. So that is part of being a trainer, right? Is just maintaining that certification. So CPR plus CEUs every 2 years. I will say this, you're all going to be taken care of for your first 2 years because once you graduate, you pass your regular exam, then you've got the CES and the nutrition specialist. Um, Either one of those is worth 1.9. So you're instantly done, except for in 2 years, get your new CPR, plug it in, and you're pay your 99 and you're golden. So really, like your tuition kind of covered your first 4 years, if you want to think of it like that. Which is really nice, but don't forget to recertify in the future. Other things, we also want to talk a little about like marketing concepts and techniques. The big one that will get you on your test, NASM really likes this idea of the 4 P's of marketing. So these make this makes a very good, like, 4 versions of a multiple choice question. Blank, again, there you go. A, B, C, and D. Oh, that one's product, right? So product, price, place, and promotion. Product is the specific product you are offering. So that is either, and that's your product line, guys. So think that's your, one-on-one training. It could be group exercise. If you do group exercise, duo training, small group training, nutritional counseling, coaching, right? All of those things are their own concepts. So they're all part of your product. The more products you offer, the more likely you are to get more customers. I recommend having a product variety. Price, how much you are charging for your services. That includes like your discounts you might be offering. Me, I love security, so I give people a massive discount the more sessions that they buy, because I love having someone on the books. So that's a big one. Place is where your product is consumed. So like, are you training in home? Are you training in someone else's home? Are you training at a gym in the park? And promotion is like, how are you going to promote your services? Things like advertising. So marketing and advertising are not the same things, but advertising is a part of marketing. So then we've got techniques for client acquisition, which is like your sales techniques and things like that, right? So sales techniques, obviously there is a lot to that, and that is generally pretty specific to the gym that you're working for. A lot of times, like, each gym out there is going to have like a different way that they want you to sort of like work the floor and stuff. Equinox, for instance. Equinox is probably the best example of like they're real specific about what they want you to do. They have a formula, they've seen it work, and so they're pretty strict about being like, everybody dresses like this, everybody acts like this, everybody looks like this, everybody markets and works the floor like this. So a lot of times, like that kind of thing, you are going to very much sort of like follow the formulas that your clients give you when it comes to sales. But if you're working for yourself, you're going to need to know how to like network and market and stuff. So just watching a quick little review here of NASM's take. So couple things to sort of address in the realm of sales there, right? So talking about the idea of like client acquisition and retention and things like that, right? Obviously, there are a lot of tools out there in the world for like, connecting human beings together, whether it's like for personal training or, anything else really. Hold on, that's the resume stuff. Working. So when it comes down to the process of like actually doing sales, it's sort of a 3-step process here. You want to identify your customers, then you want to communicate like that you have a solution for those customer needs, and then you want to try ask them for a financial commitment of some type, like, you want to make the sale, right? So when it comes to identifying a customer, what you're looking for is like, what are some common problems that you see out there in the industry? Are people struggling with corrective exercise, their weight, nutrition, just motivation? Are people like struggling with convenience, right? Like, what is it that people really like? What are their needs? What do they want, right? And then like you need to develop a product to meet those needs. Yasmin, it sounds like you've been doing a lot of like group exercise stuff lately. Sounds to me that like for you, you like the freedom of showing up at something that is like at a set time, the group aspect of it, and meeting people and having fun and camaraderie of like a large group. And you want the fun factor, which a lot of group exercise classes are a lot of fun, which is really nice. So you paint all that picture together, it makes a lot of sense, like why you signed up for like this membership or that membership. Somebody else, maybe they want that private one-on-one experience, right? Maybe something that Frank is more into is like, I want somebody who's going to work with me one-on-one, like guide me specifically, watch every inch of my form, make sure that I'm doing things correctly, right? Like that's very much a different aspect of it, right? Um, both those people want two totally different things. But if you offer those things as part of your services, you offer one-on-one training or group exercise, like boot camps at a certain time of day, that might be the type of thing that is like really effective for you to get your business off the ground. And then the other nice thing is like looking at like just like your marketing strategies. With that, we go back to the whole like marketing part. Your promotion, one is going to feed into the other. You might have like a group exercise member that says like, oh my gosh, you got to meet my trainer. And then the person that meets up is like, yeah, but I don't like group exercise. So then they sign up for personal training. Like it funnels into your other businesses, right? Or other parts of your business, I should say. So identify your customer to figure out like what your clients need, develop your product to meet those needs so that you can communicate that you have the solution to the problems that they have, and then ask them to make that sale. You do have to absolutely like ask for the sale, specifically. So when it comes to client acquisition, that's a big part of that. You want to make sure that you are sort of learning how to like run different campaigns that advertise like that you offer the product to meet people's needs. Then it's really important for you to like generate leads, right? Leads are basically anybody who's shown any type of interest in your product or service. So we sort of look at the definition for what like an actual lead is, right? Leads are basically what you're going to do. Let's see, I got my definition over here, right? No, where's my lead? Did I not put leads in here? Yeah. So sorry, this was up here. I thought it was down below. So prospecting, right, is any methods that you're doing to generate leads. Leads are any potential customer, anybody who's shown interest in your product or services. So, okay. So now you know like sort of a little bit about that, but you also got to figure out a little bit of what we call like forecasting, right? So forecasting is basically what you're going to do. Like you need to figure out like how many people do you need to talk to? How many leads do you need to get your business up and running? So if your goal is to make 50,000 in your first year as a trainer, and you only want to work 20 hours a week because maybe you're already maintaining some type of other job, right? Well, we can do the math on that pretty easily, right? I want to make 50,000 in a year. Right? Well, I know that there are 50 weeks in a year I'm available to work, right? That's assuming 2 weeks vacation at some point, right? Okay, cool. So we know we're going to do that. We're going to earn our 50,000 in a year. We know we're going to work 50 weeks. So if we do the math on that, 50,000 divided by 50 weeks equals 1,000 per week. That's how much we need to earn to meet our goal here, right? Not too difficult, definitely possible. So $1,000 per week, right? So now we've got like our financial goal in place. Okay, so we'll put this here, put this here, put this here. All of that kind of led, each of these things led to the next one, right? So now we also need to consider like, what is my closing percentage, right? So you're asking yourself here, what's my financial goal? We're gonna say it's just 50,000 this first year. Right? Probably not an end goal, but it's a really good starting place. So now the second question you ask yourself is how many people do I need to talk to / train to meet my financial goal, right? Okay, cool. Oh, I forgot. I also want to break this down a little bit more. Hold on. I would do one more. We want to earn $1,000 per week. I also only want to work 20 hours per week. 20 hours per week divided by $1,000. Actually, that's the other way around. Whoops. So it's also going to tell me how much money I need to charge per session. So 1,000 a week divided by 20, that's $50 a session. Cool. So that was the other thing we wanted to figure out there. I forgot to do that part. Okay. So now, again, we know what our financial goals are, right? I need to charge $50 a session if I'm working by myself. So now I need to be like, how many people do you need to talk to? So let's say, for example, you spoke with, so it's going to be the number of people spoken to divided by the number of people closed or sold, right? So let's say you talked to 20 people, right? So we'll do 20 people divided by, we'll say one of them signed up for training, right? Okay, now that doesn't sound like a very good closing percentage, but let's just take a look at like what that actually results in, right? So that's 20 people divided by one person signed up for training. That is a closing percentage of 20 divided by 1. I did that backwards. That's supposed to be 1 divided by 20. That gives you a 5% closing percentage, right? 0.005, move the decimal, 1, 2, that's 5%, right? Not great, not the world's greatest closing percentage, but that's okay. We're picking kind of a bad one on purpose, right? So maybe sales are not your favorite thing in the world. Maybe you're just a really good trainer. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. So, all right. So there's our closing percentage. So now that tells you exactly how many people you need to talk to, right? So you want to earn 20 sessions per week. So we're going to say we need 20 clients. So we're going to take 20 divided by 0.05. We're going to need to talk to 400 people, right? Which sounds like a lot, but again, this is your whole job, right? You're going to go to marketing, you're going to go meet new people, you're going to tell them what you do. 400 sounds like a lot, but over the course of you're building this over the course of a year to get your business up and running. So now it's like the number of people. Right? So that's the number of people that you're going to need to speak to. Whoa, I missed. Oh, that's a bummer. In order to meet your goal, right? That. So let's say that is, again, 20. So our closing percentage, so we need 20 clients. divided by 0.05. That's our percentage, equals 400 people talked to. That sounds pretty daunting. I know it's a lot of human beings, 400, but it's not nearly as much as you think it is when you start considering like how long you're breaking this down. Like you shouldn't expect to make $50,000 the first week you start training. You know what I mean? Like that would be crazy. But let's say you give yourself 2 months to work your way up to that, right? And you're only going to work Monday through Friday. So 2 months, that's 8 weeks, 8 weeks, 7 days, 5 days in a week, right? Again, taking just Monday through Friday. That's 40 days. You're talking to 400 people. Oh my God. I hit my number lock. You got to talk to 10 people a day. With a 5% closing rate, 10 people a day, you'll be up and running in 2 months. You take a little bit longer, give yourself, be a little more patient. You can talk to less people per day, And here's the other thing, guys. The problem with what I'm doing right now, but there's no other way to do it, is this is a worst case scenario. Meaning every one of these like clients that you're getting is only training once per week. So you need 20 clients. The reality is a lot of people are going to train 2-3 times a week. So you don't need 20 clients, you need 18 clients, 17 clients, right? You can build a pretty successful business charging $50 a session pretty quickly. Now, that's only earning $50,000 a year. It's fine, it's not great. But it's a great starting place, and that can definitely happen in your first year of training if you can hit the ground running. Just give yourself these goals. Do this math, right? A lot of trainers, they try to allow this to just happen naturally. They go work the floor, they kind of just do their thing naturally and like expect this to happen. But again, one of the things with our SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, timely, right? If you lay this out as a SMART goal, and say something like, I want to have 20 clients by January 1st, 2025. Like that's your goal, right? This is a specific goal. It's, exactly what I mean when I say 20 training clients, right? It's measurable, the number 20, right? It's exactly how many people you need. It's actionable. You know that in order to get clients, you need to do all of these other things. And it's realistic. I think this is definitely doable. And it's timely. It has a deadline, right? You want to change this? You could say, I want to talk to 400 people by January 1st, 2025, right? That's the same goal. It's still specific. Talk to people, I would say, about training. Just like I want to talk to 400 people by 2025. That's the same goal. They will lead to the same thing. But you do need to be specific. You need to track it. You need to write it down. You need to like measure these things. Otherwise, it's really easy to assume that it's just happening. And then all of a sudden, January 1st comes, you didn't meet your goal, and you're like, oh, I don't really know why. And it's because you became sort of passive. You were a passenger on this journey. You weren't the driver, we don't want that. So that's how you're going to do that, right? And then the rest of this is stuff that is not in your textbook, but they are things that you do sort of the equipment and maintenance and like safety considerations. Follow all the rules in your gym. Make your clients wear their freaking shoes. I know I tell you to take their shoes off during the overhead squat. Technically, that's against the rules in most gyms. Most gyms do not like it when you are barefoot. It's against their, insurance liability nonsense. But, officially, I'm telling you to follow the rules. In real life, you'll probably get away with it. Make sure you're maintaining equipment. And then like also part of like safety considerations, guys, make sure your clients aren't wearing like baggy clothing. It's going to get caught on a machine and, pull on them and pull them into a range of, hurt their arm or, pinch a finger or something like that. Teach your clients how to use the equipment at all times. Your emergency protocols, make sure that you know exactly what your gym's action plan is. If there's an earthquake or emergency, if the power goes out, all of that's going to be done in your training, and it's all going to be different depending on like where you're working. Know where your AED and CPR machine is. That's a big deal. And yeah, honestly, that's pretty much it. We really have kind of covered this. Credible source of information. I don't think that's in here either. Yeah. So credible sources of information is basically just like kind of what I talked about earlier, where it's like evidence-based practice. It's like, yeah, your opinions are a version of evidence, they're a version, they're important, research also really important, but also your clients like wants, likes, and dislikes. Those are also all versions of information that is important. And that really is the blueprint here, kind of a really quick one today. How we doing, guys? Questions, comments, concerns? How's life treating y'all?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, sweet. Let me kill the recording here.